Hey, look at my bangs. They dried and they're up higher and they're actually not super even. Oh my God. That's actually funny. Anyway, so if you've seen previous of these live videos, one of the things I've been talking about is that I realized my aspiration to read this cover to cover this year that I was gonna have to do 25 pages a month. And, look, for anybody who's reading this book along, I think one of the things as it's out in the world is that this is even okay, it's a slow go. Like, it's not a traditional book where it's like you're reading it cover to cover like a novel. And this is like having a direct experience with that because even how I'm reading it, where I'm giving kind of like director's commentary style, talking through things, I think it's actually really similar to the experience of a reader having like the experiences of like evocative stuff come up like as you're reading it and you're thinking about stuff and processing it. So there is definitely that. I am also experiencing, I just wanted to make note of this before I dip in and do some reading. So I'm gonna have to hop off in a little bit, but is that doing this reading, even doing this reading, reading this through again, is actually creating more capacity. So in the second hub right now where we are, it's interesting. And I think this is one of the qualities of what Parinama method actually is, which is that this is an ever expanding process. And that, I think one of the things even mirrored in the fact that reading it, quickly presents challenges, I think, and also just that it's a really different type of experience for really everyone. I've yet to talk to anyone who's like, oh yeah, I zipped through it without, yeah, with like no, I don't know what it's like without quitting or slowing down. But anyway, I think it's a really interesting thing because I think that a lot of people have already had the sense that this is something that's kind of like a like material or like a reference or something that's like a lifelong thing. And so I'm experiencing this as, like very likely the person on earth who's the currently the holds, is like the person who's practices the most, um, that it just continues to expand. And, and it's funny because my editor, Allison, who is like, shout out to like my angel Sherpa coach, like Allison Lowender, the editor of this book, who really made it what it is. Quite frankly, I've told that story. I tell it a lot. This week I've told it more often than I typically do about really aspects of what she brought into this process. So shout out to that. But I remember that when I was writing, I'd been alone in this content as I was developing it for like probably a year or two while I was still fleshing out the structure, or at least the initial structure for the manuscript. And there was just really truly like a hero's journey kind of thing of being really alone in this process. And so on a personal level, that represents a lot of meaning when people are connecting with this, because while I was writing it and going through my own experience, um, I always felt the presence of the other people that would eventually come and read it. Like it just was part of the thing that um, yeah, I would like it was like you were always here with it. Like you're always with us, like in ways large and small. But I remember that like that sense of being in this manuscript and doing this work and putting it together. I mean, it's like, it's kind of it's, it's a really big thing. And I mean, I think that's probably like another really universal reaction to the book is that it is like intimidating, I guess we'll call it. And and I mean like truly as it would make sense that it would be because we're talking about like the blueprint to like self-actualize. So I guess it's not like, light lift. It's, that's it's just part of what this is. But anyway, like when Allison was in the manuscript, Allison is like a really like career editor. Like she worked at Condé Nast, the massive magazine, like, like aspiration, like Vogue and Architecture Digest and Modern Bride and all that stuff. Um, and she also has the intellectual horsepower to do international relations for Princeton. I don't know if I'm supposed to not say that, like, but it's really like, so it was like, so she came to the project really like, hey, I'm good. And I just remember the thing of like having somebody else in the book with me, the first person to be in here with me, and that it was kind of inescapable that how evocative it was. And that was part of the like, kind of like, oh, I'm not in here alone anymore. Like, and that was like a first step. So now, as like the kind of reach of this grows, it's like really a special thing as far as like my own experience with it, but also the sense of service and connection and purpose that went into writing this, where there was this certainty about doing something that made absolutely no sense. Like I'd never been more clear about what I needed to do in my life, and I was doing the most ludicrous thing I've ever done, which is to kind of just separate essentially from society. Really, and just dip into this thing. So anyway, here we are. Here we are. I'm talking to you in the future, as I sit here, kind of talking into the void, but very similar mirror of that, of talking to you in a different time. And then you'll find this in the future similar to if you're reading the book. Same thing. Okay, so interruptions and stressors in the second hub. Okay. So, the courage to change, to try new things, and to take risks, along with emotional confidence, comes from being attended to with responsive care. For this facet of ourselves, our early caregivers play a profound role in shaping us. Consider how, after a long day of sightseeing in a foreign country, getting a good meal can be challenging. Perhaps we're hungry, but don't know the language beyond a few conversational phrases, and we're unable to read the menu. Maybe we point and use hand gestures, but ultimately the service we receive determines the quality of the meal. If the waiter is patient with us, we will likely get something we like. If the waiter is distracted and annoyed by our inability to speak the language, we'll eat whatever's brought to us or otherwise risk conflict. In the case of the distracted and the annoyed waiter, that bad meal will likely make us feel less adventurous. And the next time we're hungry, we're more likely to go to terrible tourist restaurants like with English language menus. However, if we had patient if we had a patient and attentive waiter, we either return to the restaurant or feel good about our ability to dine in a foreign country and venture further off the beaten path, buoyed by the confidence gained from the positive experience. In either case, we will likely internalize the experience and view it as an expression of ourselves and our capability. The patience and responsiveness of our early caregivers gave us the confidence to explore and to experiment, and how emotionally responsive they were to us became our own self concept of what we deserve and what we are capable of doing. All right, that is a pause. Yeah, similar to the game of catch, there were some analogies that really helped bring through some of these concepts that are both immediately recognizable and also kind of like a little bit elusive as far as being like, okay, like how do you really describe that? This is kind of they go deep. So, in Mating in Captivity, Unlock Erotic Intelligence, therapist Esther Perel writes, it's important to point out that our parents' behavior, what they do, is only part of the situation. Another part of is our interpretation of their actions. Each child brings an individual resilience to the lottery of life. The very delicate matter of reconciling parental shortcomings is sensitive work. But like all teachers, the education parents provide is likely very similar to the one they received. Yeah, I felt like one of the things that we're like where we're steering into right now, um, one of the reasons that I put that in there because it's kind of like an interesting placement, and it wasn't it like kind of I'm not gonna call it intentional, but it's like very intuitively felt like the right place to put it, is that where we can go with this accidentally is especially in the interruptions and stressors. I think I need a sip of water. Is really to go into like kind of blaming and shaming. And this doesn't mean that there isn't a role for a level of accountability. But as far as what we're doing and the work that we're doing for ourselves, it's kind of like we're sort of at like the no returns, like we're beyond um the window for like returning the merchandise and it's like ours now. And so it's like, it's like you can kind of like review the store and say like, hey, why is this like this? But the bottom line is that it's like kind of reconciling and really coming to terms with like what we had, like where we're at. Because the why helps in some ways, and we're kind of about to get into that. But ultimately, as far as cultivating compassion here, it is like we're looking at least my intention here is that we look at the parental impact on our emotional development in a way to give ourselves a break about it. Like to kind of say, hey, listen, this is like, this was a forming function, and the behaviors that are like resulting are because of that. So the thing is, so the point that the point with that is that it's kind of like doing an audit so we can know where we're at and just like have some compassion for ourselves and hopefully for our parents as well, and what that relationship looks like as a result is kind of a is something to develop from a place of like like maturation. But anyway, so I'll keep reading. We can consider that many parents are working with an incomplete toolkit passed down through generations. Before the revolutions of Dr. Spock's work, Chapter 3, and Balby's attachment theory, Spock introduced, yeah, incomplete passed down through generations before the revolutions of Dr. Spock and Dr. N. Balby with attachment theory. Like Spock introduced the importance of children's emotions to a culture unfamiliar with the notion. And Balby introduced the essential importance of nurture, has continued to be strengthened by a growing body of research. So the children of parents who affect, like, so, okay. I think I just need to like take a breath here for a second. A little sip of water. Maybe like hold the book up. I think this is kind of a move. All right. The children of parents who effectively attuned to them and encouraged individuality often became adults who can be more objective about their parents. The ability to withstand the paradoxical tensions of ambiguity make it possible to deeply love our parents while seeing them as fallible human beings. Emotionally mature and secure parents are comfortable being viewed as human and by nature imperfect. Parents who tell their adult children how to feel when asked about difficult memories, you didn't have you didn't have it so bad, tend to enforce a loyalty code with an underlying threat of estrangement. When parents of adult children still require obedience, these children feel protective of their parents' fragility and are fearful of the consequences of speaking up. A continuation of polarized binary thinking is often a requirement for loyalty. You are either entirely in or entirely out, and this can lead to exile and ostracism when the teenager or adult child will not adhere to the parent's restrictive standards. Yeah. It's been said that the two early heartbreaks in life are realizing that your parents are people with flaws and that love alone cannot make a relationship work. Our hurt and pain are not dissolved by understanding the circumstances that led to them, but understanding our interruptions can support the process. Be gentle and mindful of becoming overstimulated. This section helps the process, but is not always necessary, especially if the events in this hub have been traumatic. Fairy tales are filled with caregivers who are absent, careless, clueless, and in some cases evil, end quote. See chapter 4. It's usually with animals and the counterculture of the forest where fairy tale protagonists go to heal. And in many ways, it's what we do in the Parinama method is similar to this. Oh, that's really beautiful. Yeah, it's really nice. It's really beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things like this is like kind of a whole thing is that one of the criticisms that you get right now with with some of the pathologies that are being raised with people and the idea that the stuff never existed before. So, like that, yeah. So, where there's like impatience, where this is like representing the softness or whatever. But it's not that it didn't exist before, it was called different things. So this has been the human condition forever. And, even as far as like the ebb and flow of connection, as far as being able to be emotionally attuned, the sort of societal, cultural, whatever you call it, movement into cities, all this stuff that kind of created like these like kind of pressure and dehumanization, like impacted the fabric of kind of the humanity of families. So, like the idea that all of these notions that we're exploring right now are new is like like kind of the literature and the research just didn't support that. It's like this has been going on for a long time, as long as there have been wars, as long as there, I mean, like there it's just it's human nature and like part of the ebb and flow of um, adaptation, So, what I mean by this is like when we're going to get into some of the parental contributions and impacts in the interruptions and stressors in the second hub is like really being able to have like more like create just it's context. It's like creating more context ultimately is what we're doing. So, yeah, I'm not like looking at the camera. I'm like thinking. But anyway, so yeah, it's like go easy and be patient. and kind to yourself, and one of the things I think for second hub restoration is really going deeper into enjoyment and pleasure. Like the whole notion of like everybody wants these things, or somebody will see, like like wealth or whatever fancy thing. Well, everybody wants this stuff. Everybody doesn't. And quite frankly, like it's the simple things. Is like people say that it's like a whatever it's called cliche because it's so accurate. And so I think in second hub, like part of what we do in the restoration, part of it is being able to reconnect with things where we actually feel joy. It's not conceptual joy. It's not buying something expensive and like thinking like about how great this is. It's actually the things that spark the enlivening sense, like going, it's like seeing like you like petting your cat, connecting with people you care about, something beautiful in nature. I mean, even going on a trip, maybe an expensive trip. I'm not like talking down to money here at all. I'm just saying that um, a lot of conceptual enjoyment actually is not, um, is like actually living sort of like outside as an adaptation in this hub versus the possibility for feeling. And one of the things that with some folks actually now that I'm thinking about this is the delight, like making note of delight. And so one thing, actually I'll tell this story. So I was working in Europe and we had opened like 7 markets. We were opening 7 markets, and it was an extraordinary lift. And it was like, I mean, I had no boundaries around working. I was working so much, and I was just kind of like a husk of a human being. And the thing that I did, and I actually was getting really detached from like my sense of humanity, like which happens with overwork and any kind of addiction is just kind of, or compulsive behavior is like just a separation from feeling. And the thing I did was I created a little sticky, it used to be a thing on Macs on my computer, and every time I saw something that was like made, like I could feel that aliveness, like that kind of like delight, like I'd see sunshine dappling through trees and for a second be like, whoa, I'd make a note of that. Every time I would see somebody doing something on social media that I was like envied or it kind of upset me, because at that time it would upset me that people were happy, and like getting to enjoy life, like that's not fair thing. But it'd be like envy, and what I mean, like the thing is like it takes on a different form, but like at its heart, it's like that's not fair. They're having fun and I'm not. Um, is I'd write down the thing they were doing, or if I'd see something. So I had like a list of like cycling in Croatia and surfing in Africa. Actually, surfing in Africa. Yeah, actually, it was like, and then it kind of turned into this whole thing, like, going to yoga school in India and hiking the Annapurna Trail in Nepal. And, he was just like, I think it was like going to Hungary. There was something I wanted to do there, living in Bali, um, massage school in Thailand was one of the things. The, like the herding sheep in Scotland thing. There was just, I'm not getting them all, but I wrote them down. And it was kind of like this thing where it was just like, what are the things I'd like to do? And what are the things that I kind of like spark envy, and jealousy. Um, and I had that list, and the thing was when I left, I went and did it all. So I did all the things. I did all the things. I went to all the places. I did all that. And yeah. So part of the way back for second hub stuff is to pay attention to the things that like spark even the tiniest amount of pleasure, like where you feel it in your body, you go, oh my gosh, that's so great. Take the time to appreciate it. Like I think it was Hunter S. Thompson said, like, look, every time something is really wonderful, like take a moment and state it. Say, like, this is really nice. Um, and really lean in to this aspect of life. So maybe you do already. Tell me about it. Comments. So anyway, here we go. Please comment. And even if it, like I've said, even if it's like you're messaging me, which people do, understandably some of the stuff people don't want to like talk about in a anonymous or like a forum, public forum. But anything that kind of just sends me the message of like, I'm putting this out there and that you're like receiving it in whichever way you're receiving it, whether that is you like it, you don't like it, it's like sparking something, it's kind of like evoking something, whatever. Yeah, I guess that's part of what it is. It's like talking and feeling responded to is really nice. So thank you. Special shout out on that front to Rachel and Mira. Always, like, believe me. Um, and sending you so much love. And I can't wait until next time. It's going to be loads of fun. All right. Bye.